everyone, it's Kim. Who is confused about your unemployment benefits? Anybody? What happens once your unemployment benefits are exhausted on one program? What program do you get next? What if your benefits have already expired? Who qualifies for the boost? All those questions. I'm going to talk about all that today, and hopefully you won't be confused when we're done. Okay, we're going to talk about the unemployment benefits, how they work under the CARES Act versus the new legislation. The new part of the legislation that deals with unemployment is called the Continued Assistance for Unemployed Workers Act of 2020. So I guess the acronym is going to be CAUWA. We have another acronym. I'm going to call it CAWA because that's the only thing I can come up with. So assuming Trump signs the bill into law, this will all be accurate based on what I've read so far. And I've read the actual legislation, which is over 5,500 pages, okay? This video is to help you all understand how benefits work together and what comes next once you exhaust your benefits. My interpretation of the new legislation is subject to the future guidance of the Department of Labor, which could disagree with anything that I have said in this video, and their interpretation controls. My review of the legislation is subject to error and should not be relied upon as legal advice. I am a licensed attorney in Kentucky. I'm not licensed in any other state. I have worked in unemployment for 13.5 years. I cannot represent you at this time, and there is no attorney-client relationship between us. Unemployment insurance is a very complicated system, and in my videos I try to simplify it the best that I can so that you can understand it. There's always going to be additional little factors that could affect, a smaller percentage of people. But this is, in general, the simplified version of how this works, okay? I do make mistakes. I post material to try to help you help yourselves because a lot of unemployed people can't afford attorneys. It's also to help attorneys who have no experience with unemployment law and want to understand it better. I want to help all of you during the pandemic. Government workers who are confused, employers who are confused. However, I am subject to error and nothing is guaranteed to be accurate. Okay, so the first thing each state has to do is to determine whether or not you qualify for regular state unemployment compensation. If for any reason you do not qualify for regular state unemployment compensation, for instance, if you're self-employed or you don't have sufficient wages to establish a claim, then you would be considered for Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, which is called PUA. So let's start with PUA. PUA under the CARES Act, which was signed into law March 2020, allows each claimant up to 39 weeks of benefits. The last possible week for you to claim those benefits would have been December 26, 2020. If you had filed early in March, you would have exhausted your benefits in early December. That December 26, 2020 deadline is not everyone's deadline for benefits. That's just the longest that you can go. That is the last possible week you can claim. But you only get 39 weeks under the CARES Act. So if you exhaust those earlier, you will have unpaid weeks in December. Okay, so let's see. Under the new pending legislation, PUA will be extended for 11 weeks, but that cannot begin until December 27th, 2020. So if you exhausted your CARES Act PUA weeks December 5th, you don't get this 11-week extension until the week beginning December 27th, 2020. So the new legislation, the CAWA, begins December 27th, 2020, and it lasts through the end date of the program, March 14th, 2021. However, for those claimants who have not exhausted all of their PUA weeks by March 14th, you will be able to continue to claim your benefits through April 5th, 2021. If you are one of the PUA claimants whose benefits expired in early December, there are no additional benefits for you until December 27th, 2020, when the new legislation takes effect. There is no retroactive pay for PUA, and there are no extensions through any other programs for PUA. Once you exhaust your PUA, you are done, okay? Well, let's talk about regular state unemployment claimants. Your state chooses how many weeks of unemployment it provides, and that varies across the United States. So your state may offer anywhere between 12 weeks and 28 weeks of benefits. The large majority of states supply 26 weeks of regular state unemployment compensation benefits. But when we're talking about all these numbers and exhaustion, just know that it could be different for different people in different states. I'm used to saying 26, so that's generally what's true, and that's what I go with, okay? May not be true for your state. You need to check on your own state. Once you exhaust your state unemployment compensation benefits, you can be transferred to the Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation Program. The correct acronym for that is PEUC because it's Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation. Now, I guess in the past there has been other types of emergency unemployment compensation, and I think the states are just using that acronym in their system, and the workers are calling it that, and so I hear claimants calling it that. So just know, if you hear EUC, they are most likely referring to PEUC. That is the current Emergency Unemployment Compensation Program. I'm going to call it PEUC because that is what is correct, okay? Okay, under the CARES Act legislation, in 2020, claimants could receive up to 13 weeks of PEUC benefits through no later than the week ending December 26, 2020. Again, you can exhaust your benefits earlier than that end date. Your weeks may expire prior to December 26, 2020, but no one is paid any PEUC under the CARES Act legislation after December 26, 2020. Not under that legislation, okay? So if you haven't used those 13 weeks by December 26, 2020, you forfeit whatever is remaining from those 13 weeks. Okay, that's old legislation through December 26. Now, you can still claim your week ending December 26 after that date based on your claiming schedule provided to you by the state. It's still payable. You'll be paid after that date, but that is the last payable week. That's the last week you can be paid for. So think about it, think about it like this. Let's say you worked for an employer through December 26, 2020. Your employment's over. You're still going to get paid. You get paid after that week, okay? Everybody's confused about that. Okay, the new legislation that's currently pending before Congress extends the PEUC for an additional 11 weeks. Now, okay, these 11 weeks can only be used between December 27th, 2020 through March 14th, 2021. But if you have not exhausted those 11 weeks, so like for instance, if you went back to work for 3 weeks, if you have not exhausted those weeks, you can still continue to claim your PEUC benefits through April 5th, 2021. Okay, the flow of benefits between the old legislation under the CARES Act and the new CAWA legislation is fundamentally the same with one exception. So under the CARES Act, the PEUC was always paid before any extended benefits could take effect. It's the same under the new legislation except for one group of claimants. If you are currently on extended benefits, you will have to exhaust those benefits before they transfer you back to PEUC for those additional 11 weeks. Okay? For everyone else, you move to PEUC immediately after exhausting your state unemployment claim and before you can be considered for extended benefits. Not all states have extended benefits. Some states may still have their extended benefits in effect, and it varies state to state because extended benefits are triggered on or off depending on your state's unemployment rate. If your state has extended benefits available, it could range between 13 weeks and 20 weeks, and you could be eligible for those weeks once you have exhausted your PEUC. As many Kentucky claimants know, their extended benefits expired in November, so this legislation does not create new extended benefits. Extended benefits has nothing to do with this legislation other than where they fall in order as to what benefits you exhaust first. But it doesn't restart extended benefits for your state, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, once you have exhausted your regular state unemployment and you have exhausted your PEUC and you have exhausted any extended benefits that may be available, you can then be considered for PUA. Now, if you're in a state that pays 26 weeks of regular unemployment compensation and you have stacked your benefits to where you have received 50 weeks of benefits or more, you won't be able to get PUA. For any of you in that scenario to get PUA, you cannot have received 50 weeks or more of benefits because the PUA program is capped at 50 weeks. So as I just stated before, PUA under the new pending legislation is set to expire March 14, 2021, with those who have remaining weeks available would be allowed to continue to claim through April 5th, 2021. So if for some reason you're a regular state unemployment claimant, and between your state unemployment claimant, your claim benefits, your state unemployment compensation benefits, your PEUC benefits, and your extended benefits, between all those benefits, if you have not received 50 weeks and you are unemployed for a pandemic reason, then you can be considered for PUA. PUA is the last payor. It's the last program that you can get money from, okay? Now, who gets the $300 per week boost? In the new legislation, they simply used the same wording from the CARES Act. All they did was strike out 600 and put 300. So I interpret that to mean that as long as you're receiving at least $1 in your underlying state unemployment benefit, your PEUC benefit, your extended benefit, or your PUA benefit, then you would get the $300 a week boost. It's going to work exactly like that $600 per week boost that we had from March 29th, 2020 through July 26th, 2020. So, same thing, okay? If you got that $600 boost and you're still making the same on your basic claim, your PUA, your UC, or your PEUC, you will get that $300 boost, okay? Now, there's another $100 boost for those people who are considered mixed status wage earners. So those are people who have both a W-2 income and 1099 self-employment income. So let's say that you work for a restaurant and you receive your W-2 information. You work full-time for this restaurant. And then in your free time, you also work for one of those delivery services or pseudo taxi services that issue you a 1099 at the end of the year to show your income. Well, your state probably did not include your self-employment income when they calculated your regular state unemployment compensation benefits. So this $100 boost is to make up for that. I'm not exactly sure how all that's going to work. I'm anxious to see what the Department of Labor has to say and what the states have to say. So I don't know if that's going to be the full 100 for everybody or a portion. I'm not sure exactly. Okay, in addition to that, each adult within the income guidelines of the legislation, which are the exact same, I believe they're the exact same as they were under the CARES Act, each adult gets a $600 direct stimulus check, excluding those people who have an ITIN, they're non-resident aliens, and excluding adult dependents. Also, it excludes children between the ages of 17 and 18. but children who are under the age of 17 will receive a $600 direct stimulus check. Now, if you received your money, your direct stimulus check last time through direct deposit, they're saying that those are going to be issued the last week of December through the first week of January. So you should be seeing that money rather quickly. The money is not taxed. To receive the full benefit, you must have earned less than $75,000 in the tax year that you use to determine your eligibility. So if you filed 2019 taxes, they'll use that amount. If you did not file your 2019 and they just have 2018, they'll use that amount. If you earned too much in 2019 for the money, then you can get a credit when you do your 2020 taxes, assuming that you are now within those income guidelines. Okay? If you have already entered your direct deposit information in the IRS website, make sure it's correct. And if you haven't entered it, go enter it. Go to IRS, get my payment, and update your bank info. Now, the only thing that money can be garnished for is child support. It cannot be garnished by your creditors. Okay? All right, I'm going to give you some examples of different claimants and what they may be eligible for. But I want to answer one question. I've gotten this question, I promise you, 200 times in the last 24 hours. My benefits are expiring. What do I do? How do I get this money under the new legislation? There's no guidance yet. Okay? Nobody knows yet. The states are waiting for this to be signed into law first, and then to get guidance from the Department of Labor. Then they will announce on their state website what it is you're supposed to do. And really the only thing you can do is follow the directions on your claimant portal. Either it will let you claim weeks or it won't. Either it will tell you to file a new claim or it won't. Okay, but you're just not going to know that right now. Okay? Wait for direction from your state. All right, let's talk about some examples. Okay, so under the original CARES Act, PUA claimants were only allowed to receive 39 weeks of benefits, and they forfeited any remaining benefits after December 26, 2020. So if your 39 weeks of benefits expired on December 5th, 2020, you would be paid your PUA under the current legislation. You would be paid your PUA under the CARES Act legislation through December 5th, 2020. You would not receive any unemployment compensation from December 6, 2020 through December 26, 2020. Under the new legislation, you would receive 11 weeks of PUA, assuming you're otherwise qualified and eligible, for the weeks of December 27, 2020 through March 14, 2021. Again, if you haven't exhausted your benefits by March 14th, they will allow you to continue to claim through April 5th, 2021. Okay, now let's say that we're talking about a claimant who has kept their employment. They've worked all of 2020 until December 1st. They were fully employed for the previous 11 months. Okay? Self-employed. They're just now applying for PUA. Under the CARES Act, they're not going to get all 39 of those weeks. They're only going to get the 4 or 5 weeks in December. I haven't looked at how many weeks there are. The 4 or 5 weeks in December, and then they're going to forfeit the remainder of those weeks. So let's say they get 4 weeks in December. They forfeit those 35 weeks under the CARES Act. Okay, those don't carry over. As far as I can tell, they don't carry over. I read it a couple times. I don't see that it carries over. I don't believe that it does. I don't know. Maybe it does. But I don't believe it carries over. Okay? So then you would begin PUA again December 27th, 2020 through March 14th, 2020, those additional 11 weeks, assuming you are otherwise qualified and eligible, and then also giving you through April 5th, 2020 to claim any remaining weeks you might have under the CAWA legislation. That's how I understand it, okay? If I'm wrong, I'll probably delete this video and start again, but that's what I believe is true. Now, there are all kinds of other things that can happen to stop your benefits, okay? If you total your car and you're without transportation, you're not available for work, you're going to be disqualified from all of the types of benefits. You have to be available for work other than a COVID-related reason, which is an exception we're not going to get into right now. Or if you have a medical reason unrelated to COVID, if you have a heart attack and you're in the hospital and you can't work, you're not going to get any of your unemployment benefits. So all of this is subject to being otherwise qualified and eligible, okay? Make sure you read your state's claimant handbook and your rights and responsibilities pamphlet. If you don't read the instruction manual, this is so much more difficult than it would be. And honestly, I don't know if I've spoken to a claimant who has actually read their rights and responsibilities pamphlet. Go to your state's website, find it, and read it. I'll also post a document below that has a link to every state's rights and responsibilities handbook. Okay, let's go back to some examples. Let's say that you are a regular state unemployment claimant and your state offers 26 weeks of state unemployment compensation. You became unemployed March 8th, 2020, and there's no waiting week. Your 26 weeks of benefits under regular state unemployment compensation would expire, you would have exhausted it, by September 5th, 2020. Then you get an additional 13 weeks of PEUC benefits under the CARES Act, taking you through December 5th, 2020. Now, for simplicity, let's say that your state does not have extended benefits. Then you can be considered for PUA. But under that CARES Act legislation, PUA was limited to 39 weeks, and it deducts the weeks that you received your regular state unemployment compensation or your PEUC. So if you received 26 weeks of UC, 13 weeks of PEUC, you have received 39 weeks and would not be able to get the PUA benefits. You also cannot get PUA unless you are separated due to a pandemic reason. Okay, hope that's understandable. Okay, now this last example is very complicated, but I know people in this situation. I want to go through it. I'm trying to help you understand what's going on, okay? Let's say your employer closes for 9 weeks. You're a W-2 employee, okay? Your employer closes for 9 weeks, March 1st through May 2nd. You receive 9 weeks of regular state unemployment compensation. You go back to work, okay? Then on August 2nd, 2020, you're unable to work because you're a single parent with 6 school-age children, and they can't go back to school because the government has closed the school. You could then be categorized as a PUA claimant because you have a qualifying reason under the CARES Act. Because you have already received 9 weeks of state unemployment compensation, you can only receive a maximum of 30 weeks of PUA because they're going to subtract the 9 from the 39, leaving you with 30. Or until the expiration of the program, December 26, 2020, under the CARES Act. All of the CARES Act weeks expire December 26, 2020. And I say this because there's a Section G in the new legislation that says none of their benefits can be paid until December 27th, 2020. So any weeks that are granted by the new legislation, the way I read it, cannot be used until December 27th, 2020. So I believe all the other weeks from the CARES Act have expired at that point. Now, I hope I'm wrong about that. I hope that there's some carryover, but I don't think that there is. And again, we got to wait for the Department of Labor to decide that. We'll come back to that. I'll either do another video or I will post under here if there is carryover, okay? Okay. If you continued after December 27th, 2020, that person continues to have child care issues because their school is closed, then they would be eligible for an 11-week extension of the PUA under the new legislation from December 27th, 2020 through March 14th, 2021, or April 5th, 2021 if you did not exhaust your weeks. Okay, So that's why most news reporters and YouTubers don't go into depth about unemployment, because it's extremely complicated. People don't understand how you transition from one program to the next. I know the claimants are confused because most of the time you can't get through to your agency, except Indiana, who I heard does a great job answering their phone. Okay, make sure you read that claimant handbook. If you have a question, watch this video again. If you still have a question, drop it in the comments below and I will try to answer the question. I keep seeing questions that are answered in the video a couple of times, so it makes me think that people aren't actually watching the whole thing. And there's only one of me. I can only answer so many people in a day. Make sure you go to your state's website, click on your claimant handbook, and read it. I hope you all have a great Christmas week. If you want to be alerted to any additional videos, remember to subscribe. Hit the subscribe button, it's free. Share it with whoever you think needs this information. Pretty much every claimant needs this information. Then hit that notification bell so that you know when more videos are coming out. Now, I feel very certain about everything I've said today other than those carryover weeks, and I will amend that if I hear differently, okay? And that's probably going to take some guidance from the Department of Labor. If that becomes a fact, I will delete this video and start again. And I'll also put a note under this video, okay? So that's it for today, I think. I hope that helped you all understand. And pretty much anybody that asks me, do I qualify for the $300? What happens to my PUA? They're going to get a copy of this video because that's a lot to explain. That's a lot to explain. So, all right, guys, have a good Christmas week, and yay for the new legislation. And just remember also that Democrats and Republicans are all saying there's going to be even more legislation. So I don't know that I would pay a whole lot of attention to the end dates of the program, the March 14th and the April 5th, because I think we're going to get even more than that. All right? See you all next time.